I ain't playing weak, no, I'm playing for keeps. Can't stop me, I'm a legend. I run with the crew that's making the moves. Get out of the way, we coming through. We got this, never stopping, and we won't lose. No, we can't lose. Yeah.
And as we enter round number 3, we think back to last week, and the shortest race of the season was 150 kilometers from Road Atlanta. Tonight, I'll add an extra 50 to it as we jump across to the board in Germany. It's Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and it's played host to already one race on the V8 Veterans calendar a fair while ago. So long ago, in fact, we actually don't have fuel numbers on the graph that we usually run this time by. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another race from the RaceKraft V8 Veterans, and another serving of V8 Veterans Vindaloo, because what else would you eat on a Thursday night but a helpful serving of something that tantalizes with spice, with drama. Oh, and it's just a nice curry all around, I think, David Haynes. It's, yeah, your first helping of V8 Veterans Vindaloo, because that's the first time I've remembered to mention it in your presence, and given how often you go off on the KFC Zinger Box story, that really surprises me.
I could go for something hot and spicy, whether it's lamb or chicken. I'm not particularly bothered about. So this is a relatively recent racetrack, because there was sort of a shortage of good high-level professional racetracks in the former East Germany, and that's where this is. and so opened in 1997, makes it quite a modern facility compared to the long heritage that places like Hockenheimring, the Nürburgring, and some others have.
That's an interesting little layout. Really tricky complex on the run through 4, 5, 6, and down into 7 as well. And then, of course, you've got to bounce over the curb at 1 and 2. You know, that's not easy to do, and look at how long. Number 2 is basically about taking 3/4 of a roundabout, is the way that it kind of feels. Getting the late apex right for the run down the back straight, and then in through the shell curves, and off-track limits are going to be a big thing. And then don't forget the final corner, the run out of Saxon-Anhalt down the main straightaway, probably a premium overtaking opportunity. Well, it's more than a 90-degree corner. And the pit lane entry feeds off the left-hand side there as well. Quite tricky. The more tricky aspect of that one's actually getting out of the pit lane. Have a look at how sharp and slow that little kink is in the pit lane. And just about every time you see it here, racing here, and the pit lane in use, somebody runs wide on the pit lane exits. That is one of the more tricky pit lane exits that we ever go to.
And then there's a white line around the outside of turn 2 there as well, and you can't blend across too early. So it's a narrow lane you got to follow, and pit exit penalties, unsafe pit exit penalties are very harsh on iRacing as well. So yeah, a few things that compound there, and it is a long corner. The next roundabout, take the 3rd exit.
Yeah, all the way back down to Hasseröder. 3.6 kilometers is going to be the racing duration of our circuit for tonight. 14 turns in the clockwise direction. She's actually quite a fun little track to drive around. Overtaking, though, that is going to come at a premium in terms of what the drivers had to say about the racing here tonight. Well, in terms of tyre wear, it's just above average. Fuel saving ability is not going to be all that easy. There's not a lot of long straights, so you can just lift off, rock back early. Strategy variety, not going to be a heap of that either. And the overtaking options are incredibly low. That's what we were just talking about. Track difficulty is all the way up there at 3, just over the average. Chance of safety cars? Yeah, there's a really reasonable chance because it is somewhat of a narrow circuit. And confidence level coming into tonight about on average as well. That just sort of says that the driver says, yeah, look, we're coming here. We're not necessarily all that happy about it, but we are coming here. We're going to have a good old-fashioned night of racing. Supercars racing creates something just about everywhere that we go, and tonight will be another one of those occasions. In terms of where we sit with our championship standings, the race information for tonight, 55 laps, and you're going to require to complete 42 of those. Interestingly enough, the starting fuel capacity for this race, half a tank, or just under half a tank at 50 litres. You're going to have 61 litres that you can add back to that tank, and the required fuel rate is probably about twice that, 110 to 117 litres. You can get the pit stop done on lap 2, will carry you all the way through to about lap 15 and 17, and that from there you can get on to the end of the race. So there might be a few drivers opting for that if we get a nice early safety car in terms of your critical windows. But what does it look like in terms of, the championships? All right, now back onto the strategy information. This is what the graph looks like at the moment. You can get that fill done. Remember what we were just saying. Lap 2, you can get thrown from lap 15. There's a few different strategy options available here tonight, David. Anything in between those lines will also work as well.
Yeah, we've seen some races where you don't want to pit early, get stuck into any traffic. We saw Road Atlanta where actually the tyre wear, particularly on the left side, did give some drivers a good chance at an undercut and enticed a lot of drivers to try to stop earlier. So it's always a balance between how much time do you lose in traffic, how much time do you gain with new tyres, where's the crossover there, how's your race going, that sort of informs whether you want to hang out and pit late closer to that yellow strategy or teal strategy, or whether you're really looking to get a big undercut, get some track position that you can then defend. That's sort of the red strategy.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a fair few guys who are looking for that track position. The problem's going to be, I think, field spread, because you can't afford to come back out in traffic that is going to hold you up. You're going to cost yourself all of that juicy, fresh tyre life that you need to try and make things work for you. Right, now we're going to have the opportunity to get across and have a look at what our championship standings look like. No? Okay. All right, forget it. We don't get championship standings. No, that's it. I quit. I'm done. I'm out of here.
And that's been Scott Rankin. Hi, I'm David Haynes. Welcome to V8 Vets. It's not just supercars racing, it's supercar racing.
It is supercar racing. I didn't enjoy that. That's a good quote. We should use that far more often. Thanks, Dave. I'm assuming you don't have that copyrighted anywhere.
I don't know what I'm interpolating, but I feel like I've been inspired by something that someone will point out at some point. That's not a particularly original thought from me.
Yeah, I get the feeling that it's been around long enough that we would have said something about that previously as well. So, in the meantime, I think what we can do is jump across and have a quick look at the drivers that actually are on Zoom for us here tonight, because at the moment we most of the way through qualifying. We've got about a minute left in terms of our qualifying before we'll have our grid to bring up for you guys. But for the meantime, the drivers are sitting over there on the Zoom feed. Jason Fewens was enjoying practice laps where he actually got out and harassed the safety car, which was out there doing laps to make sure that it was out there. He got in the way, just had some fun and games with race control. Always a good way to start off your session. Dean Flavel will continue to let us know that he is currently under the pump, although might be relaxing after his qualifying lap. Travis Hunt, chilling out. His teammate Jeff Thomas all the way on the left-hand side. Scotty McCune returns to racing action. Please get that guy off camera as soon as possible for his own safety and luck. Michael Stewart's got the dot somewhere in that picture, and we will journey to that dot a little bit later on in terms of the things. Christian Smart, Scotty Gamble not in the rig at the moment. Ken Ladder is the other driver not in the rig. And then Tim Nichols in the bottom left-hand corner waving away madly to us. And Sharpie, so that'll be Greg Sharp, I believe, in the middle of the bottom. And Damien Cairns rounds out our Zoom feed tonight. 12 drivers joining us. That is, I believe, the highest we've had in a good while. Good to see them all.
Yeah. And when you take a look at Michael Stewart there, the description is, I think, greatest tracks in the world. So there's no guarantee that Oschersleben's actually on that.
And we can jump across and have a quick look at our driver of the day from last week's racing action, as well as everyone starts to climb back into their racing rigs. And Logan Barnett was our driver of the day, who drove through the field phenomenally. Picked up a whole host of spots. And for a driver that's new to the series, that drove their way all the way through, very, very proud of that result. Phenomenal job by him. And that earned him the Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day.
Fantastic, but I think there's quite a difference in characteristic between Oschersleben and Road Atlanta. This is a longer track, a flatter track, perhaps less high speed as well, a little bit more time spent in the corners. So it's great to have that variation, I think.
And the difficulty in overtaking goes up massively as well. It's probably something we're all going to be keeping an eye on. Alright, in terms of qualifying results, I can tell you that they are now in the books, and it is going to be another Scotty Gamble pole position, but not by very much, and it'll be a surprising name that'll start alongside of him. Potentially an opportunity for him to score a big, big podium here tonight, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes' time once our warm-up session is now done. But, qualifying results quite close together as usual, David Hames, particularly. I'm seeing that we have four drivers, in the 124-1. So qualifying results exceptionally tight across the top end of the field.
Yeah, and pretty quick laps as well at a minute 23. So about 10 seconds longer than I think we were seeing at Road Atlanta a week ago. And yeah, you're right. I mean, you look sort of always a good measurement. Where does 1 second from pole land you? And the answer is at about 24th or 25th position. So that's sets you up to let you know the field's pretty close. Lots of drivers are going to be sort of within pace of each other, able to maybe out-strategize each other, definitely able to box on during this race.
And when this place was first opened, there's a very, very famous Hamish Cleland quote about the person who came up with and designed the track, and can't speak about that on an air, although the great man carries a lot of weight and impetus with the words that he says.
John Cleland?
John Cleland. Yep. What did I say?
Hamish Cleland.
Hamish Cleland. I was just commentating a series with Hamish Cleland earlier today, which is why.
I'm sure he's said many great things too.
His friend group probably says he has, but it'll be debatable. I might have to clip that and send that across to him now. But yes, it was John Cleland who said many things about this racetrack. Not all of them are suitable for broadcast purposes, but he said them on broadcast, so the quotes exist out there.
I think a certain number of titles cuts you more slack than we have.
Yeah.
When we've won as many British touring car races I reckon we can get a little bit looser with our language. Also, it just sounds good in a Scottish accent.
It does. I agree. You can swear at people and they probably won't have any idea of what you've said, so you also get away with it that way. So, yeah, that's how it looks. This is what the action looks like out on track at the moment. From Oschersleben, as the drivers are in their warm-up phase, I did note a number of standing start practices, as the drivers always try and get out there and do. Last opportunity. I prefer to just spin tyres on the grid myself.
That definitely gets some temperature into them, but this is the Burda 200. Other than racetrack Oschersleben, do you know what the district of Burda is also famous for?
No clue.
It is the site of the Oschersleben radioactive waste dump. They don't call it a dump; they call it a waste repository. But yeah, it's nuclear waste in the bottom of an old salt mine.
There you go. There you go. Well, I mean, it's got to be put somewhere, so at least it's in an old salt mine. So
let's see. Hopefully, this racetrack and this racing is not nuclear dump or a salt mine.
My word, we've started on just something tonight. I have no idea what's in the water for us, but yeah. Anyway, most of the way through the warm-up phase now, 30 seconds before we'll jump across and start having a look at our gridding phase. 200 kilometers around Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, a track that's been on many different sims over the years. Phenomenal touring car and Toyota 86 open-wheeler style racing. Larger touring cars like the V8 supercars, unfortunately, not necessarily going to create the best racing, but that comes with a little bit of placing the car in all the right spots. In terms of your qualifying results, though, from the front end of the grid, Scotty Gamble is going to take another pole position. Off alongside of him, though, Matt van der Kraan with an incredibly large opportunity to keep that car in second spot and park it in some significantly good spots and keep himself on second on the track. Be an opportunity for a podium that he won't want to give up on. Ken Latta starts on row number 2. He would like to be one spot further forward. Didn't quite get the lap together for him. Tim Nicol puts in a phenomenal qualifying performance. Just start off alongside of him. Those are the 4 drivers who managed to set a 1:23 in the lap time. From here on back, we get into the 1:24s. Michael Stewart was the first of those, and he'll line off alongside of Damien Cairns. Both of these guys putting together some reasonable qualifying performances of late. And how reasonable are those qualifying performances? Well, Michael Whiting, who finished in second place, I believe it was in the championship last season, is 7th on the grid, in behind all of those guys. Sean McNamara, and both of these drivers have competed in Pro Series in the past. Those drivers have all started ahead of them. Chris Miller and Robert Crisdale are going to round out our top 10. From there on back, we'll throw back to Mark Poynton, will be the second of the Frog Leap Juice Racing cars, alongside of Christian Smart. And for Smarty, he'll be looking for a good start from there. How about this for row number 7 on the field? The teammates and friends, Jeff Thomas and Travis Hunt, the 2 JWM Sim Sports cars will be alongside of each other. They'll be looking to survive turn 1 with no contact, I bet. The Dino and the WKMP Sim Sports entry out of 15th. Phenomenal qualifying performance for him. Paul Warwick will be hoping for a nice clean lap 1. Struggled to get a few of those this season. Robbie Griffiths and Greg Sharp will make up row number 9, and a little bit deeper in the field for those guys. Jamie Knight qualifies a little bit further ahead than he has done of recent memory. We'll be starting alongside of Jason Fewens. We'll throw it back along to the next row. It will be 2 drivers who will be surprised to find themselves this deep in the field. 21st and 22nd for Dan Hall and John Latham. That is a long, long way back for those guys and some work to do. Matty Parker will start out of 23rd off alongside of Stewie Hall. And for these guys, boxing on down into turn 1 potential, Stephen Varga and Gary Buckland will be on the next go of the grid, and Varga will not be happy with that qualifying performance. Certainly some work to do. 2 more teammates starting in the same row, Mario Reale and Scott McCune, the 777 and the 77 car. So there'll be 5 sevens on that row of the grid before we get back to Darren Goosey and John Gallen. Gallen's still getting his way, cutting his teeth in terms of this split, qualifies towards the rear of the field. Shane Randell and Chad Lewis. Chad Lewis, the slowest of the qualifying drivers here tonight. Work to do for him, certainly not feeling comfortable. Troy Stonestreet returns to racing action. Will have to cut his way through the field alongside of Brad Doble. Logan Barnett, who was last week's Chubby Buns Burgers driver of the day, with some work to do. David Nash also deep in the field. Lorne Mackay will start from the rear, the final driver out of 37th spot. The big thing I note from this one, Haynes, so many drivers out of position.
And speaking of that, I mean, look where the tail of the field is, around the final corner there. We pointed that out a couple times. We had the same thing at Road Atlanta, the tail of the field for a standing start, a long way around the bend. Oh man, way around the bend to 37th. Wow.
Someone's going to have to tell him when the lights go out. There's no way you'll see them. So, Forlorn Mackay, a long, long way forward that he'll have to go. Lights are going to be coming on at the front of the field here in just a few moments. Indeed, they are on. Rev start to rise. 200 kilometers, 55 racing laps. It's Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. It's V8 Vets. And who will be eating themselves a bowl of Vindaloo at the end of this one? Reasonable start from Ladder. He's going to try and cut his way through. Matt Vanderkrant said he needed to start well. Didn't start well. Slots back in a 4 spot behind Stewart. And he'll have some work to do, and there might just be some life taken out of those rear tyres before they make it to turn number 1. So Ladder got the start that he certainly needed. For everyone else, they try and slot themselves in. Nichols, another driver that's already gone backwards. How have they all survived turn 1, lap 1? Well, there is someone who didn't. It looks like it might have been Mark Poynton, who again has qualified very, very well, but doesn't seem to have survived lap 1.
And Greg Sharp, there was a bit of a check-up. They were 4-5 wide at one point into turns 1 and 2, and there was a little bit of contact towards the tail of the field. All those cars are going now. No one had a jump start, but Chris Miller had a great start, and he's +4, and all of it was just his launch off the standing start. He ate up 4 cars before they got to the braking zone of turn 1, so Chris Miller's up into 5th. Just a great launch, clutch bite from the standing start.
Yes, getting that right, a V8 supercar, very, very tricky. Hasn't left lift straps behind him, but that presents a huge opportunity for himself. Up in a 5th spot, what can he do for the remainder of the night? Who is going to look after their tyres? McNamara needed to get a good getaway and did so. Jeff Thomas is also +4 on the opening lap, sits inside the top 10. The driver losing the most inside the top 10. Actually, Michael Whiting drops 3 spots down to sit 10th on the road, so there'll be some work to do for him. Warwick and Griffiths also making moves just outside the top 10. And Dan Hall's made up a bunch of spots on lap number 1, gained 5, but he's going to lose some as they come out of the last corner. And a huge wiggle on, just didn't quite get the power down. Dean Flavel is going to drive by him on the run down to turn number 1, picks that spot up for the dyno. And now they all start to settle themselves in. So one overtake made on track, but it took a mistake, and it was a run off the final corner as well.
Yeah, very exciting. And then in the background, a little bit of battling on, 2 wide. Some more drivers making big moves. Logan Barnett, John Gallen, etc. Drivers really made some gains.
Logan Barnett is +15 at the moment. Chad Lewis and John Gallen, though, to be fair, just ahead of them, also plus double-digit numbers in the early stages of this running. So there's a multitude of drivers that are on the move in the RaceKraft V8 Vets. How about this? 13 spots. Barnett's lost a few more. No, okay, never mind. So that changes things. It wasn't quite... It's 15 by my timing, which is definitely out. It's 13 spots he has made up at the moment. Chad Lewis from John Gallen. Both plus double-digit numbers. It's very, very important. Like we said, overtaking difficulty here, high. And then opening lap, those are the 3 drivers that have made the biggest gains.
Look at how much of the road they try to use in the final 2 corners there, with the pit entry all the way to the outside, and that green concrete looks very slippery on the exit of the final corner as well. So there's a few of them that run just a little bit wide out the final corner, just don't seem to find traction on the far end of the curb. Some racing circuits, it's fine, you're looking to use all of the road, it's quickest to do it. It doesn't seem like there is a whole lot of grip on the green concrete today.
It's in some sections there is, whereby the car's loaded, you're still trying to get that weight back over the rear. Or right here, it dips away harshly on the right-hand side of the road. There's the problem.
Could be an old salt mine.
Could be anything underneath those rear tyres, just don't look too hard. For now, I think what we're going to see is just this long settle in and the run towards splitting the strategy in half. On that first run, we're due to get to about lap 13 or so on that first amount of fuel. Actually, it might be a fair bit more than that. It might be about lap 18, lap 18, 20, first amount of fuel. Race standings as it currently stands in terms of the championship. And this is what it looks like at the moment. Stewart. There was drop rounds apparently still kicking into that one. So here's the total points category. that have been scored by all the drivers thus far. And how about Michael Stewart sitting third on the road at the moment? They're actually 1, 2, and 3 on the road as it currently stands. And that's how the championship runs at the moment as well. So for these guys, this is all about making sure they pick up all these spots that they possibly can here tonight. They're live points as well as the night will progress. So that graph will move around, and that's why you can see it moving all around.
Sure was moving all around. Took a little bit to get into its rhythm. The driver's taking a tiny bit to get into their rhythm as well. Scott Gamble, the race leader, has that fastest lap of the race, and he's metronomically just working his way away from the rest of them as well. And Miller, he got all of those positions with a great start, but his race pace pretty well matches the rest of the drivers in the top 10 as well. So he's not made much more progress yet, but there's going to be some pressure on Matt van der Kraan.
Yeah, big mistake, and that's prompted Sean McNamara to close right back up onto Chris Miller as well. Miller's dropped, didn't get a great exit off onto the back straight, but I can tell you McNamara did a big old lift as they got down and into this chicane, so he is looking to conserve everything as much as he can nice and early. He's closing. You just wonder, he might pull the, if he can get a good exit off the final corner, might pull the trigger down at turn 1. Reasonable, not brilliant though. Needed to be a little bit better than that for him to be able to get the job done. So he'll be slot back in the line. But team boss of 9-5 Sim Sports, and yep, Van der Kraan has become the cork in the bottle for this battle pack for 4th.
Yeah, he stabilised just a little bit. He got a good drive off the final corner, but there's a few of these long corners where I think the left-hand side tyre takes the heat around here, and they start to, after a couple laps, just keep building the temperature into it, keep wearing it down. It's a relatively cool racetrack, so it's a morning time of day, and the sun is out, but the racetrack's only at 20 degrees Celsius at the moment, so that shouldn't be overheating the tyres. But the long, take the 3rd, 4th exit from the roundabout corners like this one are just a continuous, unrelenting load.
I can tell you, V8 veterans, they do run stone cold tracks about every race, so get used to stone cold tracks and high grip race tracks as well. There's the big key. Points penalty for Dean Flavel for the incident on lap number 1. Says that it was an incident that he's definitely at fault for, but not egregiously so. So no further action on track. It's enough to prompt a points penalty. I think there was another incident that might have just been left alone on lap 1.
We've got the dyno to read his heart rate, but we don't have the lie detector to really grill him on that one. But there was definitely quite a bit of contact in turns 1 and 2 on the opening lap. Some of it was pretty full on, and I think that's what we're going to get the replay of here.
This is deep in the pack out about 30th, and you can see a few pinch brakes as everyone just sort of scatters on the run through 1 and 2. 4 wide down here. Well, that's a few of the hypersonic racing cars that got caught up in that. Is that Travis Hunt's gone to the rear of the field as well?
And then Nash taking a pit lane start by the looks of things, which actually might have been a smart decision.
Poynton got all out of shape. Somebody whacked Poynton quite hard. And that'll be Stephen Varga from the rear end of the field in the QPR car that got into someone there. Let's check this out, the rundown through turn 1 from Stephen Varga's perspective. That was Jamie McKnight, I believe. Blinky, you see it's all kicked up ahead, and then Varga's just gone for a gap, and that's not a gap.
And the contact's made, and you see exactly how close to the outside of the track he was. Like, there was not much else room left around the outside there. But it's from driving, into this gap that opens from everything that opened up ahead of that. Varga's not being pushed from the rear through the corner, is he?
No, I don't think so.
Because it almost looked like maybe one of the other cars behind him was sort of shoving him along into it. Not quite, not really.
There's a few cars going for the gap ones there. But why did Dean Flavel get the penalty? We haven't unravelled that, and it was the stuff that was ahead of that. So we're looking at the tail end. So, not 100% sure. There was a ton of smoke down at turn 1 off of Jamie McKnight's car, and we're hearing it might have been in contact with Jamie McKnight. So, Dean's given the whack to Mark Poynton there on the run to turn 1. That's what he got the points penalty for. So be this year. Watch the green Frog Leap Juice car to the right. He just got boxed in. Not really anywhere he could have gone. I think that's why race control just went, yeah, it's worth a couple of points, but there's not much he could have done there.
Seeing a whole lot of change out on the racetrack at the moment. Still before we get to any really enthusiastic early pitters. Vanderkraan still holds that 4th. Chris Miller still holding the 5th. So up front, they're sort of running a little bit as they were.
I think you're going to see a fair bit of that tonight. Probably not going to be a huge deal of overtaking. And the big keys you mentioned, I think Vanderkraan still hangs onto his spot at the moment. And it looks like he's starting to recover and starting to put a little bit more of a margin over Chris Miller as well.
Although, some of these previous laps, I think Latter's just taken a couple tenths back out of Scott Gamble. That's what we look at right now, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. Scott Gamble, Kenneth Latter, Michael Stewart in the 3rd position there with a good view of the lead.
And on our front 3. That's the margin back to Matt Vanderkraan we see.
Yeah, look at that lap 6. That's where Latter gets back within 1 second of the race lead. And you can see on the left-hand side then of the graphic that Gamble had a mistake on that lap because he was doing 124.6 one side, 124.7 the other, and in the middle he loses about a second, which costs him 8 tenths to Ken Latter, who you'd then assume is about 2 tenths of a second a lap slower than him on a normal lap. Lap 6 was not a normal lap.
Something just happened to Chris Miller. I reckon Chris Miller might have got a slowdown penalty because he's just yielded massively. And Law Mackay's had an issue. Law Mackay's got a tyre here. I reckon there's an expired engine here. And there's just been contact between Tim Nicol and Chris Miller on the run into turn number 1. Miller got right out of the way of Sean McNamara, so I think there might have been a slowdown penalty there. And then they get to turn 1. Safety car's going to be deployed, so you'll see the entire field here for sure.
I mean, it's right on time to try to take that first and early stops. So dramas through the field there, and Lorne Mackay ending up with big damage, unable to continue.
Which is a shame, because he made up a bunch of spots too. Well, something gone awry for Lorne Mackay. He's got an engine there. That's David Nash into the back of him, and then he pops it on his own.
Does it happen as he was going for a downshift and it's over revved him or something?
I wonder whether or not he's double downshifted.
The dash to the right.
Yeah, double downshift. So apparently Nash is giving him this little nudge as he's gone for first gear. So he's gone into first gear, and then it sort of picked up the revs again. Just listening to the engine note here. Yeah, so it's over revved him, just nudging him on.
It's a very unique little thing that happened, but the timing is just wrong. And as he goes for first gear and he's braking, then he gets sped back up, and it does some damage to his engine. Nash, of course, no qualifying time, and then started from pit lane. This is pit lane right now. Busy, busy, busy.
I can tell you Stephen Varga, David Nash, and Greg Sharp all got into the lane prior to the safety car being released. So we've all got held up a little bit, haven't got much of a game, but the entire field is in. Not a single car stayed out.
The long stop's Ken Latter here, because he's now back in 6th. Remember, he was 2nd or 3rd. But he's taken a lot at this first stop, dropped down to 6th.
As is Matt Vanderkran's dropped a bunch of spots. Rob Chrisdale's taken a very, very short stop here looking for some track position.
It's so interesting because with the compressed gaps, suddenly the amount of fuel you take is under even more focus than it would be with the green flag stops. So there's a temptation to take a lot and you'll get the time back, but there's a heavier track position penalty pitting under safety car for taking more fuel.
And the other side of the coin is you want a light and nimble car as well, which, allows you to go out there and get aggressive. John Latham's jumped a bunch of spots, sits inside the top 10, so he's another car that's gone very, very light in fuel strategy. This will be the chatter from 9.5 outfit. And they're debating whether or not strategy call was the right one, talking about who's doing what and around them. Because McNamara has taken a short stop as well and jumps to 3rd spot. Michael Stewart jumps to 2nd spot.
Yeah, so you get a lot of variation, sort of 20 seconds to 30 seconds. You got Gamble and Stewart have both gone about 24 to 25 seconds of fuel, but then there are just a few little outliers out there, like Chrisdale, like Chris Miller. I reckon that's a good number and good bit of track position for Chris Miller, honestly, in 8th with 32 seconds of fuel.
He's only lost, what, 1-2 spots? Really?
So if we go green shortly and we go green to the end of this race, Latter and Miller could be some drivers standing to gain a lot at the 2nd stop.
How about Sean McNamara has taken a really short stop, 22.5.
Yeah.
And then, what you said, Rob Chrisdale, 18.5 as well. There's not a lot of fuel on board those two cars.
My numbers match what's on screen, so as you look down and you start to see some big stop numbers that are in good track position, those are drivers who certainly could aim for a podium today.
Jeff Thomas is up and inside that top 10 as well, and there's quite a few cars in and around him. But that'll be worthwhile keeping an eye on, for sure. And, well, on to safety car period. We'll be going back to green flag at the end of this lap. 1/5 of the race now complete as well. Be interesting to see what it's going to be like from here. There's going to be quite a few very, very heavy race cars here, Dave, and I think that's the big thing. There's a few guys at the front of the field are looking at it and going, I want a light car, I want an agile car, I want to see if I can pull away.
Yeah, a lot of them would have gotten quite close to full as well, because it's not that long since the start of the race, and then a few of them have taken quite a bit as well. So imagine some of these cars are, quite a few of these cars are heavier than the race start.
Yeah, there would be. The bulk of the field would be, actually. It's not necessarily going to be a quick getaway here. Segment of the race. Safety car's going to be in pit lane, which means field is back under the control of Scott Gamble. And everyone's looking for every little advantage they possibly can find at the moment. As they run down the final couple of corners. Green flag back out and in the air. Gamble's going to run it down at turn number 1. Michael Stewart sits 2nd on the road. Huge opportunity here for him. Try and come away with a bulk of points. And McNamara is trying to get aggressive with a lighter race car as well. Robert Chrisdale is going to be exceptionally quick through this next phase of the race with one of the lightest cars up and down the field.
It's a good restart for Latter as well, because he had some pressure on Matt Vanderkran there. Not sure how long that's going to last with Vanderkran having a lighter car, but that's a good positive sign for one of the drivers that I'm saying look out for based on their strategy.
If he can make that spot quicker and then attach himself to the rear end of this front quartet, he is going to be in with a right royal shot at taking a race win, which he certainly needs to refire himself and challenge Scott Gamble.
On a basic sense, the numbers of this, Ken Latter took 8 seconds more fuel than the race leader, if we get to the second stop and Ken Latter is within 8 seconds of the race leader, he's sitting peachy. So you look at the cars that he's got in front of him and how quickly can Scott Gamble start to build a little bit of a lead, as we've seen him do this season and previous seasons of V8 Vets. So that's sort of the equation to watch, is what's the gap between 6th place Ken Latter here and Scott Gamble, and when does it become more than 8 seconds?
As they come back past the start-finish line to complete the first lap of green flag racing, it's already nearly out to 3 seconds as well. So, after work done, maybe. The Gamble.
He's not hanging around, is he? Up front, he knows for sure that a few cars behind might have taken more fuel than him.
So already trying to start to try and drop Michael Stewart. That'll be the big factor about this one. And have a look at Ken Latter and how hard he is driving at the moment. Eyes are forward. Wants to get down, get after Vanderkran, see if he can't move his way forward.
And in the safety car pit stop, the pole sitter, Scott Gamble, had pit stall number 1, so he'd have that supercars thing of you can react to what the teams further down the pit lane are doing. Once you see another car start rolling, he could have left his pit stall, and so his fuel number might have just been in reaction to what a couple of the cars behind were doing, and then a bit further behind that few have taken more and put them to a strategy advantage to him, but Gamble just didn't want to risk that track position.
Yeah, needed to maintain.
Why would you? He's got that race pace, so just match what a couple of the cars behind you are doing, have the race lead, press on.
It's the big thing, has to keep the race lead. Has to keep the race lead. I think that's absolutely the right call. Giving up that track position is a big no-no at this point in time, and Latter is now right there on the rear bumper of Matt Vanderkran, and he can't wait too much longer. Vanderkran very deep into 1. Had to do a lot of braking between 1 and 2. Now the questions start to get asked to Ken Latter, out to 3.4 seconds, so is drifting, but it's only drifting a little bit. You and I are both listening to race control there and deciphering the numbers, trying to work out, did we see the incident that race control were talking about, which has resulted in a points penalty for Chad Lewis? It was for contact with John Gallen. What was the reason for that one? You can just see from Ken Latter's perspective, his car's just not lurching off the corner very quickly. It's very lazy, doesn't want to get up to speed. He's going to have a lot of problems trying to get this job done. Something's just happened to Tim Nicol on this lap as well. You can see he's struggling to get that car pulled up. Is that him dive in the pit lane? No, he's not going to dive in the lane. Going to continue on. Just been a little something that caused him to lose some time, and he's back on it now. Now that margin out to 4 seconds, so half the job done. Scott Gamble at the moment. And you just get the feeling as well that if he just feels that extra little bit vulnerable, the margin's a little bit tight, he'll just undercut him for 1 or 2 laps. Just absolutely stamp of authority all over it. Or it'll run very long as well. Strategy is going to be a big thing about this race now, with everyone pitting at the end of lap 9. There's effectively 47 laps, 46 laps to the end of the race from there. So about 23 laps to go on this set of tyres. Big snap from Tim Nicol there. He drops back in 1 spot behind Jamie McKnight. He had a bit of a group forming behind Christian Smart here. Logan Barnett's in it as the biggest mover in the race. That is Tim Nicol talking to race control right there. What he just said was lap 15. He wants them to have a look at what's just happened. Because he's getting a little bit beaten around and boxed in at the moment. And there is a big old battle pack forming from 14th on backwards. Which is Christian Smart, was Tim Nicol. So get that job done. Have a look at the queue that's starting to form in behind Tim Nicol. Jamie Knight's gotten on by him now. Scott McCune will be the next driver to line up. And Logan Barnett's going to be sitting in 18th spot and thinking about having a crack at the moment. And
always loves how this ZB Commodore has the rear window of the VF sedan, and then they've put the hatchback on top of it for 2 rear windows.
There you go. I just learned something about the supercar.
Travis Hunt had contact, and Shane Randell's looped it around, and he's the driver rejoining all the way back there. 2 or 3 cars came together and, nose to rear fender contact, spun 1 or 2 cars around. Shane Randell obviously ended up backwards and stopped.
This will tell a little bit of the story. There's so much going on here. Check up, check up, check up.
Tunes into Hunt into Randall there.
And it looks like Fuen's just got a snap of oversteer on the corner. Had to correct it. It's on even further back because there's somebody in the back of the 501 from all the way back here. There's more going on. So Randall got a little bit checked up. Fuen's into him. Fuen gets him another whack again, and then tracks out. Flex Travis Hunt. Hunt spins Randall around. There's so much to unpack in that one. They might be looking at that for a while.
Gallon ends up off-roading after it, so he is avoiding, and he's out here, and he gets the full airborne treatment across the access road.
Somebody want to tell John Gallen he's racing supercars and not rallycross?
No, because I thought that was fun to watch. Tough for him, not great racing, but certainly worthy of a slow-mo sort of stuff.
So we're now across the critical lap numbers for all of our strategies in terms of how much fuel you're burning. So you can make it home any time from now, which means if we see another safety car, and given the way things are going on, don't discount that, don't discredit that from the race at large. We'll see everyone dive back in the lane to complete their second stop, chalk that one off, and they'll isolate the fuel strategy. Then it'll just be a tyre saver from their home, which would definitely be interesting to see. Very, very long run with a tyre save required.
Yeah, I'm not sure anyone without damage wants to, because no one's, leaped in at the moment of the strategy window and the pit stop window opening.
This is the onboard from Jeff Thomas at the moment. Run down through turn 7. Jamie McKnight's just been asked to redress behind Tim Nicol.
Race control calling it a bump and run, so there might have been a bit of contact in the middle of the corner. Car in front lights up the tyres, and Jamie McKnight goes through, and whether he thinks it was a big bump, whether he thinks the oversteer from the car in front was because of his bump, or they were just going to do it anyway, or certainly saw it, part of that happening at the time. Didn't get a great look at it.
Hasn't readdressed it yet, so he will readdress it now at the final corner. So that one's now been cleared, and the problem was that Scott McCune was lining up to have a crack at both of them, and he's going to be the big beneficiary out of this one. And McKnight does not want to let McCune through. McCune will have the outside at turn 1, becomes the inside at turn 2. What was a redress of 1 spot for Jamie McKnight is going to cost him 2 and nearly a 3rd as Logan Barnett trying to shove a nose to the inside as well.
And it's a short run into this hairpin next. So Nichols sort of through and released, and he's hoping he's going to have a little bit more race pace, but there is a queue here. We know some quick cars in it. Troy Stone Street, Brad Doble, 2 drivers that didn't qualify. Logan Barnett, who didn't qualify, and they've all sort of filtered to mid-pack here and have a bit faster than mid-pack pace.
Leading to the queue that's formed up at the moment. Problem for Jamie is it looks like he's might have worn the best part of the tyre away at the moment because he's really ailing back to Logan Barnett as it stands. So all of the pace that he might have had and got clear of Tim Nicol with, he kind of can't show anymore. Which, when you're forced to redress, it's like taking a double dose of your least favourite childhood medicine.
And cynically, I'm not sure that Tim Nicol didn't make it a little more painful for Jamie McKnight than it maybe needed to be.
I mean, who doesn't? When someone's forced to redress, you want them to really suffer that price, don't you? So, either way, Scott McHugh's the opportunist, and has come out the other side all the better for it. You can really see how much Logan Barnett is lurching off the corners much better than McKnight, and that might be because there's 5 seconds with the fuel difference between these two drivers. McKnight is a lot heavier than him at the moment.
This is one of a few corners. There's a couple of different lines. It's wide in the second part for both of them. They were both doing the sort of stay a little bit wide of the first apex, try to nail the second apex, and then didn't get to the second apex. And you're seeing the same thing through the long turn 2 right-hander at the opening part of the lap, where some drivers go sort of double apex and really run deep into the corner and turn back for a late apex, and others sort of do a little bit more carousel, hug the inside all the way around. And both lines can be, valid depending on how you're trying to manage the tyre wear or where your strengths are with, braking and trail braking and everything. There are, therefore, sort of 3 or 4 places around here where you look carefully and you see, this driver's doing this line, this driver's doing that line.
It's also probably worth noting, Dave, it's something I just sort of put in the back of my head. This could be the very last season of the V8 Vets on the Gen 2 chassis. Although that's been debated all year about when we will actually see the Gen 3 chassis, and if it is available to us next season, do we take it? I think the consensus has been yes.
Oh, it's Rain Motorsport games going under, IndyCar coming back to iRacing. When it happens, but don't hold your breath.
Actually, for Chad Lewis, we're hearing potentially on the pit lane exit here, so out and away. Remember us talking about how difficult the pit lane exit was? No issues on the pit lane exit. That's how tough and tight technical that pit lane exit is, but we were hearing there might have been a crash, but it was because of the nature of the pit lane exit and how slow it is.
Sean McNamara got past Michael Stewart a little bit ago, so now McNamara's up in a second, but they're both 2.5 seconds behind the race leader, and then critically, Ken Latter is now 7 seconds behind the race leader. So Gamble's got the hammer down a fair bit at the moment. Can we get the camera on bigger?
I was just about to say, is it about time to go digging for if this track exists on the graphic? And given the fact that I don't see a red dot, I'm going to say no. Or it's outside the shot.
Yeah. There's a good bit of clumping to them, so you see European tracks together, all the Australian tracks are together in sort of the right hand side there, Bathurst, Surfers Paradise, Simmons Plains, etc, etc. So
what I'm thinking here, Dave, is it's potentially, if it is on that graphic, it's off the screen, but it may not necessarily be. And the other thing that I've learned over the last couple of weeks is if you want us to spend a lot of time looking at your race car, put something interesting on a webcam and turn your webcam on. Because we will debate whatever is in a poster in behind your sim rig, and I throw that out as a challenge to all the Split 1 V8 veterans drivers. Could be a poster that sits in the background of your room that says what goes in the best V8 veterans Vindaloo. That would be enough. Yep. Give us a conversation starter and we'll certainly bite and take it. Train forming out on track now for 4th spot. Robert Crisdale seems to be the cork in the bottle. Van der Kraan's managed to go with him, and there is an 8-second differential in terms of fuel between these two cars, positive in the way of Van der Kraan. Ladder's got 6 seconds more fuel on board than the pair of them, but just not quite able to get close enough. And an update on Jason Fewens as well. Remember that incident we were looking at where he snapped sideways and got into Hunt turned Randall? He's been issued a drive-through penalty for that one. So,
I found the original graphic and a legend. I don't think it's there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised it's not on there. Oschersleben's not one of those tracks it's a track I think we all know, but it's not one of those tracks that you sit there and go, if you had 30 slots of tracks to put on a graphic like that, there's probably 30 tracks better in the world. Or at least 30 tracks more iconic in the world. Meantime, Ken Ladder's data suggests that he is trending towards Robbie Crisdale, and that suggests that Matt van der Kraan is getting snuck up on slowly as well. Although van der Kraan looks very racy on this lap, he is starting to really get towards Robert Crisdale, so Crisdale may not be too much longer for this spot. At a 10th.5 faster on that lap was Matt van der Kraan. Again, just checked up. You just wonder whether or not if Crisdale wasn't in this spot, would the strategy be working out for van der Kraan? Would he be a lot closer to the cars ahead?
It is a totally different sort of strategy question once the field is hacked up with the safety car and pitting versus if you're able to get 2 or 3 seconds of clean air in the first stint and then pit with that advantage, then it doesn't matter if your first pit stop's just a tiny bit longer. You might only lose, 1 spot or so, but once they're all so tightly packed, then yeah, the drivers who took a short amount of fuel kind of are in a difficult position, but the drivers who've lost a lot of track position are in a difficult spot as well. So you can see sort of a negative to both.
Either way, at the moment, just keeping an eye on Crisdale, because Crisdale's got one of the shorter fuel loads towards the front of the field, and they pit 15 laps to go. He'll be one of the first to dive to pit lane, but you feel like 30 laps would be just too soon. Probably might push it out to about 25 laps on the tank, which will get us to about lap 35. It's probably about 6 or 7 or 8 away from pitting, somewhere in that realm.
Yeah, because everyone right now is on their 16th lap since pitting, and there was like
45 to the end, 46 laps to the end of the race.
Yeah, so then in the halfway point from that first stop to the end is still more than 5 laps away, really.
Which means the undercut point's probably about 2 laps before that. Problem being, for our front 3, they're sort of just going to come out in traffic if they pits. Maybe this pack would be okay. They wouldn't catch any traffic. Who's caught up in this? Travis Hunt's managed to cut his way back through to the back end of the pack, even after all the issues ended up happening. Wonder how much damage he's carrying on that car. Tim Nicol leads the way in the pack still from Scott McCune. So after that redress order, it's all sort of stabilised within this pack, but the fuel is everywhere. Everyone has got a massively different amount of fuel to the cars around them. So whilst they might be trained up like this out on track, from a strategy perspective, not necessarily. Just see Travis Hunt's not necessarily all that happy behind the wheel at the moment. Look over. Normally he looks a little bit more relaxed. Shake it off.
Now to be performed by Scott Rankin.
Shake it off. A shake it off.
Not too much more of low royalties.
Have I told you about the time I nearly got our English broadcast coverage of the Thailand Super Series cut off by Disney?
No, but it sounds believable.
I wanted
Disney
to perform
famously are very lackadaisical with protecting their IP.
Yeah. I stopped myself before I started, basically, because I knew exactly that would happen. But you gotta have a little bit of fun with it.
So this corner, these two corners coming up here, you want to think of them almost as a chicane, but they're just too far apart for it to be a classic chicane. So yeah, that's such a odd little corner, because if the right and the left were further away, you'd say, oh, there's a right-hand corner, and then it's followed by a left. If they were closer, you'd say, oh, it's a right-left chicane. But they're just this awkward distance apart where the drivers are not quite sure how far out to track through the first right-hander, and then still like on the throttle a little bit, and then back to the brake again. And they're just a painful little distance apart.
Are they S's then? Much the same as the Schumacher S's at Nürburgring.
Don't know.
Another story, though, for those of you watching along at home that want to see success in terms of real-world racing, I hear that it only takes David Haynes sitting in your race car seat to make it successful. There's a number of times that's happened now to you, isn't it?
Yeah, what have I got? Like 12-hour pole-sitting cars, and that's the first one that comes
Formula V. It was a Formula V you sat in, then all of a sudden became very, very quick after you sat in it.
Yeah, but I think I had to go with like every car that was doing the Queensland State Series. I was casting a very wide net on that one, I think. So the error bars were very wide on that sampling.
Yeah, but was there any tigers? Well, you were there, Dave, so you're preventing the tigers from being in attendance. David Haynes is a tiger repellent. You know you're in trouble when you're searching for jokes like that.
Well, something I could have said that I was trying to work out if there was a better way to say it, but I couldn't. What's going on there for Miss Miller?
Can I just have it said, I really don't like this racetrack. This is the second time I've put up broadcast from this track in the last 2 weeks, and I still don't like it.
I think there's a reason it got left out of greatest racetracks in the world, and flipping from Germany, like Norrisring and Avis are on that graphic, and this isn't.
Finally an overtake out on track as John Latham gets the business done. And he will overtake Ken Ladder. Oh yeah, it's Ken Ladder's back here on fuel strategy. I was about to say, what is Ken Ladder doing back here? Yeah, that's fuel strategy. Latham is on a very, very light race car at this point in time. One of the shorter stops on that last run. So this is Ken Ladder losing a bunch of spots on the most recent lap. So this looks like it's probably going to come from a mistake. Yeah, a little bit wide as they run into turn 7. Through goes Kantz. Through goes Chris Miller. And then John Latham lines him up to have a crack as well. Oh, I had to let him back in.
So Miller becomes my one to watch. So he's got 8 seconds more fuel than race leader Scott Gamble, but he's 11 seconds behind. And so realistically, it means he could be fighting Sean McNamara for second. And at the moment, by the pit stop adjustment there, he'd be ahead of Michael Stewart for third. Had, I think, first of our drivers to make their final stop in the shape of Rob Crisdale.
We were expecting him to be the first one to the lane. With the least fuel of everyone. And from where he pit, he's only about 3 seconds behind Jason Fewens. The problem for that is that says to me, everybody else who's left to pit is going to feed out around the back of the field. There is going to be sporadic traffic, so you probably see a bunch of drivers up to run long now.
Yeah, but we knew Crisdale was going to need more from his second stop than some of the others were, because he was basically 10 seconds quicker in his first stop than some others. So if you look 10 seconds up the road from where he is now is where some of the other drivers would go.
Yeah, well, that's where Mario Reale is. He's actually bang on 10 seconds down the road from Crisdale. So, yeah, and then there is a little bit of a hole ahead of Reale, but then there's a huge pack. Something's just happened at the back end of the pack. We were just talking about it. I think I see either two cars off or cars coming into the lane. It's David Nash and Greg Sharper also diving into the lane. So, second round of stops are now kicking off.
And Travis Hunt was just interesting. Maybe he'd done something to his tyres and that's why he was unhappy.
Potentially. Also had a lot of fuel load on as well. This says to me that John Latham's probably not all that far away from pitting. Probably this lap or the next lap. So most John Latham perhaps going to go one more lap on his fuel, but we're all sort of expecting, which means that we're going to start seeing all of these guys in the next couple. Yet, so Latham is going to continue on for one more lap. So this is the head of this group, which is Matt van der Kraan. We also have an update from pit lane, and there is a very, very expensive McLaren safety car that is currently on fire in the lane, which means I don't know if we actually have another safety car on the server. We might be in trouble if we have to deploy the second of the safety cars here tonight.
Always got to have a backup. You know what wouldn't blow its motor idling on pit lane?
Travis Hunt's got a penalty as well. He just came to the pit lane, so either speeding on pit lane entry, speeding on pit lane exit, or some sort of issue through the lane. So just see if we can try and get a recap of this one.
It can be a few things, right? It can be your speed on the way in, it can be your speed on the way out, and it also can be the blend into turn 2. So right here, you've got one lane width. Oh, it looks fine, but it looks close. You can't have like a tyre outside of the white line until the blue cone, I thought.
Yeah, so might have touched the line on the left-hand side, because if you sorry, on the front, on his front right tyre. Either way, back through the lane, in and out. Penalty served, and the problem for him now is feeding back out in amongst the leaders as a lap down car. So that'll basically put paid to him having a strong finish here tonight.
Porsche Taycan electric safety car wouldn't overheat idling on pit lane, just saying. Neither would a Hino hybrid recovery truck.
Yeah, true. Just keeping an eye on the battle for second place as well, because I think this is somewhat relevant. Sean McNamara and Michael Stewart on track. They're only about a second apart in terms of pit lane fuel that they both added, and they're less than a second apart in terms of track position as well. So that one's going to be a very, very tight blend back in. Another one that's worthwhile keeping an eye on is how Damien Cairns is going with Chris Miller in behind him. Runs in 4th at the moment. Miller's got 4 seconds worth of extra fuel on board. And Miller's also going to dive to the lane to get the undercut done. That'll get him some additional spots earned. Latham feeds back out in behind Crisdale. There is a huge old battle on between the guys that are on fresh rubber and the guys who are yet to make their second stops, by the way. Crisdale banked up in behind Jason Fewens. And John Latham is there as well. This is Shane Randell, who is the car that got turned thanks to Jason Fewens getting a snap of oversteer. And this is for, air quotes, position on track, but not effective position. And Crisdale, you can just see Crisdale wants to get on with the job, but there's not really all that much he can do about it at the moment. He's just getting banked up. This is costing him so much.
Yeah, right now is where you're looking to undercut, but it's not happening. He's not even passing. So now into the final corner, he's just gonna try to get a good run out of here. And it's not perfect, but surely at this point you can put a bit of pressure on.
Is that Jason Fewens trying to let him go? No, it absolutely isn't. So Fewens is playing cork in the bottle at the moment. I wonder whether or not Fewens is trying to get his buy on past Rendell.
Good for Miller, who's come through his pit stop way ahead of here.
Gee whiz. Again, Fewens just covered to the inside. Now, you can go around the outside. Down at turn 3. And Crisdale is getting really annoyed now. He is really absolutely had enough of this. He wants to get on because he can absolutely feel his race getting ruined right here. Oh, they got overlap, but he's just going to feed back in. He's doing everything he possibly can to set it up. There's just no room for him at the moment. Fewens is 1.7 seconds slower than his fastest lap of the race. And Crisdale has got brand new rubber on this car and looking to make an impact. It just can't go anywhere, still getting banked up. And the other problem is Latham's even quicker than Crisdale is, and he can't go anywhere either. And Latham will be wanting to pull the trigger on Crisdale here in a moment. Fewens finally feeds out of the way, which is probably a smart decision. And now Latham might have a crack at Crisdale.
And the drivers that were losing time to, a bunch of them have made their stop. So the race leaders come through. Scott Gamble's made his final stop.
And the run back down through turn 1. Here they all come. A bunch of cars feeding back out. Tim Nichols going to feed out level with these guys. I think that's Christian Smart that's just ahead as well. This becomes a huge old pack. Randell's on old rubber. Crisdale's still getting held up. There's nothing he can do. Boxed in. Latham's going to have to go the long way around. Tim Nichols going to be on the inside.
What did they rank the overtaking here? Because it's looking super tough to do. You've got a big tyre offset. You're a quick car, quick driver, and you just can't get through easily here.
Latham's going to leave a heap of space for Tim Nichol. Finally manages to get both of those drivers to drop back in. At the moment, it's 18th through about 25th on track, but at the moment, it is so difficult for these guys to get their way through. Randell is meanwhile continuing to box in Crisdale. Latham might have a crack at him at the back end of the straight. Eventually, Crisdale's going to pull out. Latham's going to chase him all the way to the right-hand side of the road. Are they going to get overlap? Latham's going to look for the overlap. He'll get to the outside of Crisdale. Now he'll get up and alongside of him. They bump. They do bump, and it's going to run Crisdale off the circuit. Finally, Latham's going to get through. Tries to back it down the inside. Nichol gets boxed out now as well. Latham immediately scoots through, and then Randell pits just to make matters worse. I guarantee you that there is a frog bouncing around in the cockpit of the Frog Leap Juicing Racing Machine of Robert Crisdale. And he is a mad, mad frog.
He's got more dramas here. Big move around the outside of turn 1 to take the inside at turn 2 from Tim Nichol.
Finally gets it done, is Tim Nichol. And now he'll be off with his race. And Crisdale's just sat there with his head in his hands and just going, I was on for a reasonable night. I had the undercut. I pulled the right strategy card, and the traffic just got in the damn way. By the way, to give you sort of a representation of how much that one lap of being boxed up meant, Christian Smart's 2.5 seconds clear of John Latham, 3.5 seconds clear of Tim Nichol. That was how much that one lap behind Shane Randell hurt those guys.
Scott Gamble's got 4 cars in front of him that still need to stop. Knight's gonna come in, but we didn't see exactly where a few of them rejoined because we were watching the on-track racing, but it's gone pretty well for Chris Miller, who's going to end up net second.
As it has for Jeff Thomas as well.
Yeah. Sean McNamara drops a tiny bit. Ken Latta gets a couple of spots back. Michael Stewart drops 1 or 2.
Dan Hall's still continuing on, as is Matty Parker and John Gallen, so there's those few. What about the difference in terms of fuel between these guys?
It's about what I'd expect, honestly, because Miller was 8 seconds longer the first time. Now he's 11 seconds shorter second time. He's probably had more space to save as well, because Gamble was out front pushing on, really trying to extend that gap before the pit window, while Miller and a few of those others, they were sort of tucked up, particularly behind Van der Kraan, I think, was kind of leading the group there. And so Miller, I think, was probably saving a little bit more than Gamble from the first stop to the second stop. Probably makes the 3-second net difference there.
He also couldn't do very much in terms of how much he was just banked up in that pack as well. Couldn't really show the pace. McNamara, though, getting quite close to Jeff Thomas. This will be for 3rd place after the stops are finished. I believe Gallen's just dived to the lane. Dan Hall is now in. So we're going to get close to cleansing this field. Now Matty Parker's the only one left out. So Ken Latta closes in again on these guys as well. Michael Stewart's now dropped a bunch of spots. Matt Van der Krum will end up out of all of this in 9th spot, so it hasn't worked out for him. Cairns will end up in 8th. Has worked out quite well for Dan Hall, though, after a miserable qualifying performance, up at a 13th. And he has Shane Randell and Jason Fewens to thank for that, because he's popped out right in the middle of Christian Smart and John Latham.
Got a check from that onboard of Jason Fewens that he wasn't grinding his teeth or something, or maybe he was just keeping his mewing streak up, but he didn't look. He's had a tough one after that drive through, and so then he probably feels like he's in some traffic that he didn't belong with, but then he had the older tyres in front of some quicker cars behind him that were struggling, so everyone was a little unhappy with what was going on there. Just got Matty Parker is the last to stop. He hits the lane, and you can kind of assess from now to the end who's really been able to gain with their strategy, how much fuel and track position they got from the first stop under safety car, and then how well they've placed themselves with their pit stop this second time around.
How much is a Vindaloo worth in terms of the calorie counter, David Haynes?
I don't know. I think you measure that with your heart and your soul, not the calories.
Well, I think there's enough room on the calorie counter there.
Lamb.
We'll go lamb. We'll go lamb Vindaloo. As David Haynes works behind the calorimeter in the back corner, giving us all the latest on what a serving of Vindaloo is worth. Dean Flavel is on the limiter.
I mean, it's going to be very dependent on how many cups of rice you have.
Always true. Tell you what, though, Dan Hall is really starting to apply. He's got fresh rubber by 3 laps or so. And Christian Smart will be trying to apply some pressure. That was the outside of Dean Flavel and what that was looking like. This is only just a little bit further down the road. Closing in. You just wonder, Paul Warwick's up in a 10th spot. If these guys can not duke it out too hard, there is a chance for them to close in on Warwick, who is on older rubber than both of these drivers. Dan Hall is so close now. Is he going to go for it in the last corner? He is. Gets down deep into the final corner, gets the spot and gets the drive out the other side. Christian Smart just recognises he wasn't going to come away with that one. And Hall goes on the attack into 11th spot for the Evolution Racing team driver.
haven't seen many successful passes into the final corner because it's only a short run from the previous corner, so you don't arrive at a whole lot of speed. And it's only a short little straight for you to try to get some overlap to make a safe pass. So, I mean, you can throw the nose in there and try to dive bomb your way in, but if you don't have some amount of overlap before the braking zone, you're probably asking for trouble. And if trouble comes, then you're probably asking for a penalty.
Yeah, so
623 calories for this lamb vindaloo.
So you can nearly get 1.5 vindaloos. You could go back for seconds. Not
You
quite
could
a full second serving.
upgrade to cheesy garlic naan.
Scott McHugh's strategy hasn't gone his way. He was fighting inside 15s or so earlier on in the night. Now drifts back outside the 20s. Might try and see if he can come away with 20th spot on the road just ahead of him. Towards the tail end of this one. I'll tell you what, his sim does look lovely though.
The 4 monitors going on. I used to have another monitor above my main monitor, and I was just thinking earlier today, I miss that. I'd rather crane my neck looking up than break my neck swiveling and look at this side screen.
I think I'm finally going to get to unpack my rig this weekend and go back to 4 monitors, and I am so keen to have my 4th monitor back. You have no idea.
Yeah, summer's coming soon, so it's time for all of us to work on our rig.
Been doing that too, so yes, thanks, Dave. Matt van der Kraan has managed to go ahead and make one spot up on Damien Cairns. This is how this one happened. As he moves his way into 8th place now. Say Cairns probably big old wiggle. Tank slapper in the middle of the corner, and that'll allow van der Kraan to square the corner off nicely and get the drive down the inside.
Interesting, but well done. So I've got Chris Miller as the biggest strategy winner today so far, but I got Sean McNamara as just good race pace here because there were a few drivers like Ken Latter and a couple of others that I thought had him beat on how quick that their final stop was going to be able to be. But his pace was good. Remember, he made that pass for second on track before the pit stops. And now he's well placed that he still could catch and put some pressure on Chris Miller to the end. So if McNamara gets to second, it's going to be on his racecraft and his passes and his race pace more than any strategy genius. But if Chris Miller holds on, he can have his graduating hat for that clever work.
Just keeping an eye on the pace of Dan Hall as well, because if he can keep progressing, he will get to Paul Warwick. But Paul Warwick's also potentially catching, I believe he's catching Damien Cairns at the moment, so if he can continue climbing. Jeff Thomas at the moment hanging on to 4th spot. We'll have Ken Latter in behind him. Latter's going to pull out, try and have a go as they enter the shell curve. Not quite an opportunity to get down the inside there. But Latter's starting to feel aggressive. And the race is finally coming back to him in the background. I think there was Whiting who was trying to slide down the inside as well. Oh, Michael Stewart, and he's still going to line it up off the final corner, and Stewart just lights the rears up. No traction out the rear of that car, which means Whiting will pick the spot off. Moves his way to 6th spot. Stewart.
So if Ken Latter hadn't had that issue, that mistake where he lost 2 positions and maybe a second and a half or 2 seconds, he probably would have come out of the pit lane ahead of Sean McNamara in 3rd. So from all of that, Chris Miller's been consistent and had a good strategy, and Ken Latter, who also had a good strategy, just had that one little mistake that has probably cost him a podium here, but you can see how determined he is to try to fight for 4th.
Certainly throwing everything at it. It'll be every point that he necessarily needed, and there was an opportunity for him to maybe have beaten Scott Gamble today in terms of strategy game, and it just didn't eventuate that way. tell you what, Paul Warwick is catching Damien Cairns and catching him at a rate of knots too. Oh, Travis Hunt's just had an issue.
There he is, spun out of the final corner, going backwards.
They will have to, as there's no way that he gets out of that. We are going to re-rack him. We are going to restack him and get a restart with about 10 laps left to run. And there is no strategy implications to play out here. There will be no more pit stops. If you're at the back end of the field, you might slap on fresh tyres because you haven't got anything to lose. There is only one car at one lap down at this point in time, and it is Travis Hunt, and his engine is blown and his night is over. And there is the marks that are on the road there make me think there was contact. Unfortunately for Travis Hunt, it is all a whoopsie.
Said that green concrete looks slippery. So the horizontal concrete slippery, the vertical concrete very, very firm.
Kind of traction you don't want on the front end of your motor though.
Good news, we found another McLaren 720S GT3 safety car. So that's lucky, but just hanging around.
Oh boy.
Scott Gamble's about to catch that safety car. His lead will get evaporated. So who'll have the freshest tyres if no one pits? Dan Hall, 7 laps old. Scott Gamble, 10 laps old. Ken Ladder, Michael Whiting, 11 laps old. Jeff Thomas, 12 laps old. So probably good for Dan Hall. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference for the rest of the field. Say like the top 5, where there's not a great tyre offset on this restart.
I was just going to say somebody like Jason Fewens, Shane Randell, Mario Reale, who sit 33rd through 35th. One on.
I'd put new tyres on if I was 30th or lower, but I wouldn't if I was 15th or 20th.
Oh, I agree. Wholeheartedly agree. With Shane,
like,
we're just watching the only driver might take the opportunity to slap on fresh rubber. And he will. Smart.
Everyone else had been past pit entry and not gone in when they had the opportunity. So again, there was a few other drivers though that might have been worried that if they did, they'd get trapped the lap down. So maybe you want to make sure you catch the pack first, even if you were going to do it, and maybe you don't just because of that worry of dropping the lap.
There's no one actually a lap down, so we should be able to deal with this pretty quickly. We feel.
I don't think we're going to... Yeah, there didn't look like there were too many wave bys or anything that had to happen from the safety car, but as the safety car was called, Fewens was like 50 seconds behind the race leader, and it was a clean air laps being a minute 24. It was possible that stopping would have dropped him down, and then it gets messy. Oh, look at that heart rate dropping for Dino.
You'd be loving this.
Big deep breaths.
Shane Randell's now going to try and charge around and catch the tail end of the field. He's going to have a lap though. So the worst thing that he can do at the moment is slide those tyres and put some extra heat in them. He definitely needs to not lounge around on this lap, but he doesn't want to take the life out of them.
Heap of time to catch the field. They're doing 75, 70 k's an hour at the moment, and they've only just crossed the start-finish line with the majority of the pack that's then got to do the whole lap around. So no worries at all for Shane Randell to catch up to the back of the pack. Probably restart this race in 35th, And so that will give us 9 laps to go when they cross the start-finish line at the end of the safety car period.
So they're just getting themselves get sorted now, and it's going to be 9 laps of racing action to the end. How good is it having a new McLaren in the sim?
I mean, papaya rules.
Yeah, that's a statement many Australians have a lot of questions about, but we'll leave that one untouched. Opportunity is going to present itself here, though, for a number of the drivers. Gamble will lead the way. Sean McNamara will have an opportunity to see if he can't pick up Chris Miller. Jeff Thomas was ailing back towards Ken Latta, so now gets a little bit of a recovery effort. The biggest margin, I think, was Dan Hall to Paul Warwick, which has just been eliminated. And Damien Cairns was looking like he was in a fair bit of trouble as well.
My ones to watch here: Sean McNamara, Ken Latta, Dan Hall.
And as we await safety car being in pit lane, safety car's now in the lane here and back onto the steering wheel for Scott Gamble. 9 laps left to run. Goes very, very early just before the apex of the last corner. She just caught them napping just a touch. Chris Miller will try and track him down on the run down the start finish straight away. Who is looking for a little bit of an overtaking opportunity? Stewart didn't get a great getaway, neither did Vanderkran's a mile back off him. And you can definitely tell the fresher rubber on board for Dan Hall, because he is right there with Paul Warwick. That's probably the first closest cars. McNamara tried to show the nose. It's only about 4 or 5 laps, but it is enough. It is a margin. At the moment, Damien Cairns looks like he might have just had too much heat in those tyres and they've recovered quite nicely. Oh, big old wobble now. A few of the cars as they come down the back straight away. Near spot looks to be about where the closest fight on track is at the moment, and it will be Chad Lewis and Scott McCune who are fighting over that one. In the meantime, that was a lap on board with Damien Cairns on a restart.
Solid for Scott Gamble. What has he just gone and shaved 1,000th of a second off the fastest lap of the race? So to just get the heat out of the tyres, and suddenly the pace is right in them, even though they were sort of 10 laps old. And realistically, any hint of fuel saving is probably gone for everyone in the field now as well, if they'd taken a number at the final stop that needed them to just have a little bit of a feather on their foot.
Really worth a note of starting to think about who's going to be our driver of the day as well. John Latham yet again has driven his way back through the field, but Tim Nicol, losing 10 spots, will not be happy with all the drama that happened in the middle stint. He had a phenomenal race a couple of weeks ago. Just get the feeling for Chris Miller, this might be his opportunity for a driver of the day performance.
It's a strategy of the day performance, but if he holds off Sean McNamara here with all this pressure, it could be driver of the day.
By the way, huge moment for Dan Hall, Tim Nicol. I think it might have been Robert Crisdale. No, it was John Latham. John Latham ended up out in the weeds. I thought it might have been. Indeed it was. And Christian Smart managed to get a dive bomb done off the end of the back straightaway. So this will tell a little bit of the story. So all these guys are going to get checked up here in a minute. Smart, something's happened for Christian Smart to get down the inside there, because he was great run through. Bobble at the apex, and then they all tried to tip in there 3 wide, and Latham sort of got left on the rubbish part of the road. Well, Smart got a touch up, and I just don't think he knew that they were 3 wide.
I mean, it's a big check-up from the 2 cars in front as well, and then where do you go? The only place he could. Ran out of space there as well because of what the guys in front were doing. There's a bit of curb hop there from Latter. Not sure it's perfect because you need to be then planted for the change of direction, and the long right-hander part after that chicane then leads you down one of the longest straights on the racetrack to that braking zone there where we just saw the action a lap ago.
And starting to run out of laps too, because this time past the start-finish line, there'll be 6 more laps left to run. And time is starting to run out. You just see the field's just starting to get bottled up again. They just can't go anywhere. No opportunity for an overtake, unfortunately. Had to get it done on those first couple laps. Somebody's trying to get a job done on the run out of turn number 1. Chrisdale holding off of Robbie Griffiths. So Chrisdale didn't get a great launch off the last corner. And a little bit of a battle further back between Lewis and Scott McCune again ends as they were status quo maintained.
You're waiting on a mistake right now to be able to do anything. Here's these 2 different lines through the long right-handers. See, Chris Miller just gets a little bit wider in the middle, and Sean McNamara thinks there's an opportunity, but there's not, because it's not going anywhere. And Miller's going to come back to the second apex.
Unfortunately, yeah, they're just all stuck, because at the moment Chris Miller starts to get his... effectively, he is towing Sean along, but now he's got the clean air. He can just turn the car just a lot better. Good drive off the final corner now for Sean McNamara. Update from the incident from the previous lap involving Latham. Deemed racing incident, no further action. And Latham's had more drama at the same spot.
He calls it an S's.
There is actually a car off the back end of the field, and I do wonder whether that might be Logan Barnett's. Unfortunately dropped a long way back, so safety cars might breed safety cars. I don't think there'll be enough time to get another safety car in at this rate. We're running out of time. Oh! Ooh. So Barnett in hot, unfortunately trips over the front end of John Latham. Although he's got a slowdown penalty, that's why he looks like he's yielding at the moment. Barnett's just missed his marker.
Barnett kind of gets into 2 cars there. This can kind of happen to, what is he? He's alongside, trying to outbrake the car to the left of him, which sees him go into the car in front of him, and then into the car on the left of him, unfortunately.
I think he was going to end up off the road no matter what happened there, whether or not there was Latham alongside of him. Unfortunately for John Latham, it's prevented a strong finish. Meantime, Chris Miller continues to hang on to a spot. John Latham's going to do a strong resurgence at the back end of the field. I just saw him just get past Stuart Hall, so Latham might be one of the cars worth to watch in these final few laps. This is one of the other ones. Chris Miller continuing to look backwards at Sean McNamara.
Yeah, and Scott Gamble now just getting away 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds. Here's another one of those places. Miller runs just a little bit wider in the middle of the corner, comes back to a later apex, does get to throttle pretty well. What he needs is McNamara to not see one car width to the inside of the track for a tenth of a second and think that is a Commodore nose shaped space.
I'm just thinking here, Dave, is he intentionally focusing on exits and sacrificing those entries because he knows there's not much that McNamara can do?
I mean, you're driving to try to not be passed here, not driving to try to set the lap record or catch Scott Gamble. So that is one of the ways to do it. You'll sort of park it in the middle of the corner, just make sure you get to good throttle on the exit, and that can defend your position pretty well at a slow track or a narrow track.
There's no walls close to the side of the road that are really propping up in the meantime. This is the view from Whiting. And we're looking at Jeff Thomas. Is the 5th spot on the road. I think I'll let you read that one out, Dave, because I think there'll be no surprises in this next part.
You're talking about the penalty for Logan Barnett, missing his braking marker, skiddling a couple of cars, unfortunately. From a drive in the early part of the race where he'd made so many spots, obviously had a mistake or a drama in qualifying to start as far back as he did, but then had made many positions. And that's the sort of the drama of the late race restart, is now a mistake and a penalty like that has dropped him to stone last again.
At least it wasn't very far he could have fallen back. He only dropped a couple spots to be out the back, so...
He dropped most of the spots when he was off the road.
And now Michael Whiting just about making contact with Jeff Thomas, so these two are going to duke it out. 2 more laps left to run, 6 kilometres worth of racing action, and it's running out very, very quickly.
Kent had also got the headlight flashes on Matt Vanderkraan back there, so you've got lots of battles to watch inside of the top 10 with 2 to go as the desperation starts to rack up a little bit. Sean McNamara on Chris Miller, Jeff Thomas, Michael Whiting, Michael Stewart. This group here where Damien Cairns also maybe thinks he's got a bit of speed to show.
I think Gary Buckland might have just gone around at turn 1 as well. Unfortunately for Gary. Something's just happened at Christian Smart as well, so there's a fair few drivers. So Dan Hall's now scooted through on Christian Smart, and we're hearing it might have been the middle of last lap. McNamara's going to show the nose. There'll be one more lap after this one, and he's just trying to get inside the head of Chris Miller at this point in time, and Miller pays him no mind. Focuses on the exits through the chicane. He'll have to do that one more time. The final 2 corners for the second to last time. And now we'll line it up out of the last corner. 1 more lap left to run as Barney waves the white flag.
James Barney, very efficient there, good technique for him, and it could be just very relieving sight for Chris Miller.
We wonder how much longer he could have held this one off. Jeff Thomas will be thinking exactly the same thing. And there's a car round out the final corner. Greg Sharp's gone around as well. Unfortunately for him, so he'll lose a bunch of spots coming to the final lap of the race. There's a big old battle pack actually just on the run out of turn number 1. John Gallen, John Latham, Darren Greasy, Stephen Varga, all caught up in one.
Everyone's having one now on the final lap.
Very, very tightly fought, even all the way back down at the bottom end of split 1. Scott Gamble's going to get home again by a country mile, given the short run to the end of this race, but Chris Miller's only got probably this will be the last opportunity for McNamara. He's not close enough. Ken Latta will rue the opportunity. Should have been finishing second here tonight. Won't be taking that spot home. With one mistake in the middle of the race has cost him a podium. But a Ken Latta mistake is Chris Miller's delight. Scott Gamble takes win number 3 on the season. And it's going to be Chris Miller who rejoins the podium for the first time in a while. And I've just seen John Gallen being turned as well by John Latham in the dying stages of the race.
damage of all sorts on that car, the front, the back.
Middle of the pack will now come home. Chad Lewis finishes out of 18th. I think it was Jeremy McKnight pulling up to out the end of this one. Shane Randell, we're disappointed with getting spun. Unfortunately for him, drama in the middle of the race, but we'll see the flag. And the fresh tyres at the end of that race didn't really net him much. Whoa. That's how Greg Sharp ended up around. He's on the outside of the run down the final corner here. It's elbowed wide, then tries to pick the throttle up and the rear comes around and then it's just finished off, really.
I rate the pinball, though. Got it going the right way and going again, but...
It's John Gallen. This is how he gets finished off as well. Makes a little bit of mistake. Latham gets out and on the curb. Just trips over him. Is what it is, unfortunately for them, so probably Latham to get a post-race penalty for that one. But that is going to bring us to race end for 200 kilometers from Motorsports Arena Oschersleben. Scott Gamble will get the job done once again. And starting to wonder whether or not anyone will be able to challenge him. It'll be Chris Miller who manages to get his way back on the podium for the first time in a little while, and Sean McNamara rounds out your podium to put 295 SimSports cars on the podium. From there back, Ken Latta from Jeff Thomas. Good defensive effort by Jeff Thomas. Did well to get himself some track position and then hung on to it very, very well. The first lap was quite key to that race at large. Michael Whiting from Michael Stewart. Matt van der Kraan does get home in 8th. You would have been thinking potential podium in the offing for him, but the launch was a big, big issue. Jamie Cairns made up a bunch of spots on lap number 1 and then slowly drifted a little bit further back, and Paul Warwick will take a top 10 and be happy with that one as well. Just outside the tent was the driver with the freshest tyres in that last run to the end of the race. Dan Hall couldn't make much of it. Tim Nicol will be in behind him. Good drive forward from Hall. Unfortunately for Tim Nicol, went backwards. Robbie Griffiths from Robert Crisdale. Dean Flavel in the dyno gets home in 15th. Starting to become a little bit of his target race position at the moment. He should crack the top 10 towards season end. Dominic Knight, Mark Poynton, a little bit of a disappointing night for him, but then again, contact on lap 1 as well. Chad Lewis from Scott McCune had an okay race given he was out of sequence on strategy, and Troy Stone Street started at the rear to get to 20th. Outside of your 20, David Nash, also starting from pit lane, gets back to 21st with a couple of safety cars helping him on that progress. Matty Parker. Christian Smart fell off the road and outside the 20 back to 23rd. Brad Doble from Stephen Varg, another car that got contact on lap number 1. Darren Goosey and John Latham just that last end of the race in the wars, left, right and centre. Stewie Hall, Jason Fewens after a penalty inside of 29. I think Gary Buckland had an issue on the second to last lap of the race and around, unfortunately, dropping through the standings. Outside the 30, there were 7 more cars that started the race outside of our 30. It'll be Greg Sharp from Mario Reale. Shane Rendell, John Gallen, and Logan Barnett, 35 of 37 finishes on the lead lap. Travis Hunt and Lorne Mackay, the 2 retirements, and the only drivers not to finish on the lead lap from this one. And that cuts our way through the field after 55 laps from Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. We're going to chat quickly to our race winner. We'll get him on and in. Scotty Gamble, not the easiest race here tonight. You guys had to pull a little bit of a strategy card on that one because you needed to maintain the track position, but weren't sure how much fuel everyone else was going to add.
Yeah, that's right. How you going, Scotty and guys there? Yeah, it was, hey. Like, we've seen that Ken took a little bit more, so we sort of really had to push and just maintain that consistency after that safety car, you know, to try and get back that that time, that 7, 8, 9 seconds or whatever it was. But yeah, there was a few strategies going on, and it looks like, you know, looking through it, Chris Miller, you know, he nailed it, same as Jeff and Sean, you know. So yeah, it was good fun. Hard track, really hard track. Just to be consistent on, very difficult.
There is a famous quote that goes around by John Cleland that says whoever designed this track should be taken out in the back and beaten about the head. But what are your thoughts about that one? I've seen 2 races from it in the recent history, and not a whole bunch of overtaking happens around this place.
No, it doesn't. It's you've really got to look after tyres, especially your rears, you know. And you just get a flow. It's one of those tracks that, you know, when you come in other tracks, you can really get on the brakes and brake in hard and try and make some time. This is one of these tracks where you've got to balance that brake pedal so much so to keep that flow up. But you know, there is a couple of opportunities, but you got to wait for someone to make a mistake on here. But you know, I like the track personally. I actually like to drive on it, but yeah, the racing through the you know, the mid packs and stuff like that be difficult.
Yeah, certainly not easy here tonight, mate. Season's been going incredibly well thus far. For you, I mean, it's all looking peachy, but next week we head to probably one of the ones where everything cannot come unstuck. Long Beach in the Concrete Canyon. She's a famous track in terms of V8 supercar circles.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I don't mind the street circuits. I think it's great that we've got him in the mix. So, yeah, and I know Sean, he's very fast there. Ken, last time we were there, he was fast. So, yeah, it's going to be on. But again, we just try and get around, not make mistakes, and see where we end up. Because, like I said, that track can bite you. And yeah, it's fun. I like the street tracks. Yeah, so looking forward to that one.
Mate, well, congratulations on another race victory. Who would you like to thank here tonight?
Yeah, big shout out to you guys over at SimSpeed. Love your broadcast. You guys know that. Watch them, not only this broadcast, but all the others as well. Shout out to Veterans Gaming Australia wearing their shirt tonight. It's a gaming forum, Discord. They've got a channel, and a whole heap of veterans get in there. It really helps them with their mental health, and you know, to be around other like-minded veterans through gaming, a lot through sim racing. So if you're a veteran, check them out. VGA, Veteran Gaming Australia. To the drivers, well done tonight. Well done to Chris. He drove fantastic. Same as Sean, really good drive. And to our sponsors over at 9.5, you know, big shout out to them. RaceKraft, Turn In Apparel, RSW Graphics, Racing Ears, and Prestige Cinematography. And yeah, and to our race control. You know, it's a thankless job, but they're in there doing it, and I think they're doing a great job. So thank you guys.
Congratulations, mate, and happy birthday for the other day too.
Yeah, thank you, Scotty. Cheers, mate.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, Scotty Gamble takes away another race victory here tonight. We're going to step one step further down, and I do wonder whether or not this might be actually our Chubby Buns strategy of the day, because Chris Miller, you didn't necessarily have the out-and-out pace to be up on the podium, but it doesn't matter when you put your car cheekily in there and then manage to hold them all off for all the laps it takes to get to the flag.
Hey boys, how are you?
Long time between drinks and you and a podium here, mate. Oschersleben probably the right track to pull out the alternate strategy. Worked quite well for you here tonight.
Yeah, it's not really, well, you can't really save a lot of fuel here, but I tried my very best. So I think it was just putting a little bit more fuel in at that stop and at that first safety car, which I think I put 75 or 80 litres in. So I think it came out of the pits with 100 litres in the tank, and the guys around me all put sort of 10 or 15 litres less, which confused me a little bit. But it seemed to drive a lot better with a bit more weight in the arse end too.
In terms of things, mate, she's tricky to get around. We're just talking to Scott Gamble. He said, I really kind of like driving around this place. I don't like racing around here. It's very, very difficult to get the overtake done. So track position is really the big old key, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Scott would probably know, but yeah, no, it's a difficult place to pass if you can hit your marks. And I think in that last 10 laps with Sean behind me, I think showed that he's obviously a quicker driver than I am, but I just hit my marks and focused on the getting out of the corners and didn't really give an opportunity. So yeah, it's I don't particularly like the track. I think it's stupid. But that's just me. And I don't know if have they rescanned it or reworked those sausage curbs, because they feel terrible.
Mate, we're saying the same thing up here in the booth. Can we get this one off the schedule? Never come back to this place, mate, in terms of things. But
I think it was Scotty McCune last time, or someone last time said, I wish they'd never bring this back again, or something in the broadcast. I can't remember. I do ring a bell that I think it was either one of the Scots said it. But here we are again.
Yeah, here we are again. So I'll pass the comments on to Bruce McLeod, and hopefully we get listened to this time, mate.
Probably not.
In terms of things, how was the fishy stable and the banter over for you guys here tonight?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. There's lots of Mike Whiting and Kenny were in and around me, and I think we all ran sort of similar strategies. But I think Kenny caught a slowdown just before the safety car. Can't think off the top of my head, but yeah, he caught a slowdown, which basically let me go past him. Which, yeah, otherwise he would have been P2 for sure. But yeah, we all just ran the I know Mike, myself, and Kenny all ran the same fuel strat. So, yeah, but no, the banner in there is it's pretty good. Coleman in there with his door knock. So I'm not sure if you've heard those. So.
No, I haven't heard that one. You're gonna have to.
He's got some stupid door knock thing that echoes and sounds like someone's knocking at front door. So the first time it happened, I may or may not have went outside armed with something. So anyway.
That one's gotten a few people on Discord, don't you worry, mate. Congratulations here tonight, Chris Miller. Who'd you like to give a thank you to? And by the way, a big old shout out to you because you get driver of the day for your efforts today as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much to Chubby Buns. I appreciate that. So obviously all the boys at Fishy, Mike Whiting, team boss, all the boys. It doesn't matter if they're racing vets or not, they're all jumping in there and they jump in and help spot and stuff. So it's an amazing group of lads. And yeah, testament to them. Some fast guys in there and we all learn off those boys. So appreciate them. The sponsors, West End Motor Group, Infinity Designs, DC Shades, Battery Warehouse, Early Beach, and Precision Sim Training, and Harlon, I think it is. So that's it, I think.
All right, mate. Well, congratulations on P2 and picking up driver of the day, and we'll see you again next week for Long Beach.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it. Thanks for the broadcast. Thanks to the race control team.
Mate, thank you very much. And finally, we're going to chat to tonight's third place finisher. It has been a little bit of a while since Sean McNamara last came in and had a chat with us, mate. Team boss over at 9-5. You and Scotty seem to get on like a house on fire, though. He's always saying how much fun it is to sit down on a Thursday night and actually get to go racing with you.
I'll have to flick him that $50 for saying that. But no, yeah, it is a hoot. It's been good bringing him on board, and yeah, it's sort of reinvigorated me, I guess, to get into vets again, and I think it's invigorated him a little bit. So yeah, he's a good lad, good guy. We're learning off each other, and yeah, just keep pushing as hard as we can.
Mate, in terms of things tonight, you threw just about everything you possibly had at Chris Miller, but there was just no opening. So the defensive effort was nice and stout for him, but he just said, focus on making no mistakes, and there's not much you can really do. Yeah,
100%. It's a really tough track to pass at, and I've had an okay start of the season, but not a great start with a couple of incidents. But I didn't want to risk, sending it on him and picking up a penalty or taking him out of a good position. So really just showed my nose here and there and tried to break him and get him to make a mistake. But said to him before, he just didn't make a mistake, drove it clean and got it off the corner as well. And yeah, he drove really well.
Mate, it's just been a little bit of a drama fest for you. Just whenever you're on for a good run, something happens to just prevent it. You just haven't been able to really stick a consistent run together in this series. What's going on? Is there something in the water? Have you kicked a black cat? Have you walked under 5 different ladders lately?
Actually, yeah, Mrs. bought a black cat. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I mean, last season, if I didn't have internet issues, I was putting the fence. And this season's kind of started the same with got the internet issues fixed, so that's good. And round 1 got turned around at turn 1, round 2 got turned around on the first lap. So it's just been fighting back and thankfully salvaging some good spots. But hopefully with the internet stuff out of the way, this week was a bit of a clunky one, a lot of work stuff going on. So really, only got a handful of laps in before qualifying. So looking forward to Long Beach next week. Sort of put a lot of pressure on myself for street circuits because they're my jam. I enjoy them. So, but yeah, look, it's a good crew, good community here, and it's been good fun. It's just sometimes luck's with you and sometimes it's not. But so far this season hasn't been too bad given the first couple of rounds. So looking forward to the next one, that's for sure.
Right, well, congratulations on the race here tonight, third place, and onwards and upwards for Long Beach next week. Who would you like to give a thank you and a shout out to?
Look, all you legends at SimSpeed, thanks for everything you guys do across all the platforms and all the different leagues and so forth. All the league admin, I don't get any very often to say that, but all the league admin for what they do is pretty impressive. My guys, thanks to all those boys, Scotty, Champ, and then of course RaceKraft, Turn In Race Apparel, RSW Graphics. Thankfully, you got my car on screen. I can't remember, but Prestige for cinematography and. Of course, Racing News Custom News Protection. So thanks to all those guys.
Hey, congratulations on finishing third and finally getting that one off the back. I believe that one's been coming for a while, and finally might have gotten rid of the bad luck. So congratulations, mate, and see you again next week.
Cheers, boys. Thank you.
Righto, David Haynes. That is going to round us off here tonight from the V8 veterans on behalf of RaceKraft. The good old serving of Vindaloo. Next time out, you can eat your Vindaloo by the water. It's going to be the Long Beach GP. One of the toughest, most technical street circuits that's out there, but there is overtaking potential. And this one really gives you a Surfers Paradise vibe. It's got the ability to get overtaking done, and that's why we all like it.
Yeah, big, long front straight into a good overtaking opportunity at turn one. Very tight and technical through some of the other parts, like the fountain section and like that final hairpin, which can probably lock in for a little bit of drama, but it does have that one long straight that gives opportunity. Expect, like tonight, it will be more of a strategy race than a race pace race. We definitely saw, well, no one really won by being clean tonight. Some people definitely lost out by not being clean and precise. So you've got to keep your game up in that respect. And tonight was really one on the strategy.
It certainly was. You had to be there, you had to be quick, and you had to be in the right spots. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, most importantly, and that's why it's highlighted in the bottom right-hand corner, don't forget to change your clock back this weekend. The October long weekend marks the start of daylight savings here in Australia. For the East Coasties, barring Queensland, so looking at you, David Haynes, don't move your clock at all. Don't adjust your clock, but just remember next week that the rest of us will be on Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. So that's right, we'll be here from 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. For all the states that don't observe that, remember to make your adjustments on the clock. It has been my pleasure to bring you all the racing coverage from another round of the RaceKraft V8 Veterans. On behalf of the title sponsor, RaceKraft Simulations, and the new video put out by John Lee with the new sim at the top of the show. It was good to see that one on board. Player One Sim Gear, Logitech G, SudSpeed, Nova Sim Sports, LGC Images, Parramatta Isuzu Utes, and our Chubby Buns Driver of the Day award handed out to Chris Miller here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, that is another round of the RaceKraft V8 Veterans. See you again next week for the Long Beach round of the championship.